In the headlines, Russia pulls the plug on gasoline exports. What's driving the sudden ban and how long will it last? Details coming up. Ceasefire or just a pause? Thailand says Cambodia crossed the line literally just hours after a peace deal. A decades-old border dispute is heating up again. Deadly rains, rising waters, and thousands displaced. Northern is in crisis. President Xi Jinping orders an all-out rescue response as floods swamp cities and threatens millions. The U.S. accepts a luxury jet from Qatar as President Trump's next Air Force One, but critics warn it could violate the Constitution. Legal battles, billion-dollar questions, and a plane fit for a palace. Carlo de la Peña has the full story. 9 Filipino crew members of MV Eternity Sea remain in Houthi rebel custody weeks after the Red Sea attack. The Philippine Department of Migrant Workers confirms their status through a newly released video. President Marcos Jr.'s tough talk on corruption gets slammed as weak and empty by an economist, while a former senator blessed the U.S. tariff cut as a joke. In the world of entertainment, Beyoncé makes music history as her Cowboy Carter tour becomes the highest grossing country tour ever, raking in $400 million worldwide. And Chris Paul is back with the Clippers. The 40-year-old signs a one-year deal for a possible final NBA run, aiming to help LA chase its first title. I'm Franco Baranda. Newsline World starts now. Russia has lobbed a temporary ban on gasoline exports in a bid to curb rising domestic fuel prices as the country faces surging demand and refinery disruptions from drone attacks. The embargo applies to all fuel producers and may be extended if needed. Jane Cognito reports.
Russia has imposed a ban on gasoline exports until August 31st, a move aimed at keeping domestic fuel prices in check amid peak summer demand. The Kremlin says the decision, which took effect on July 28th, is meant to support local needs, especially with agricultural work now in full swing across Russia. This applies to all fuel producers, not just smaller traders. This follows a high-level meeting earlier this month, where Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak ordered oil companies to take immediate action against rising pump prices. Officials blame the surge on drone attacks on refineries and increased seasonal demand. Gasoline prices have jumped sharply. AI-92 is up by more than 14%, while AI-95 has surged by over 23% since the start of summer. Russia, a top global fuel exporter, produces over 40 million tons of gasoline every year. Exports to allies like Mongolia and Uzbekistan are not affected, but the ban may be extended beyond August if necessary. This has been Jane Cognito, your citizen correspondent for God and my beloved country, the Philippines.
Relentless rains continue to pound northern China. Authorities have launched full-scale rescue and relief operations with evacuations, emergency alerts, and infrastructure damage reported in multiple provinces. China's President Xi Jinping has called for an all-out rescue and disaster response as deadly floods batter parts of northern China. Andrea Santos reports.
Torrential rain has flooded parts of Beijing, Tianjin, and Hubei province, forcing over 30,000 people to evacuate. Roads are submerged, power and telecom lines damaged. The capital has been under a red rainstorm warning since Monday noon, the highest on China's 4-tier weather alert system. Rescue teams continue to work in Mian and other affected areas, where rainfall exceeded 290 millimeters in less than 24 hours. President Xi Jinping has ordered authorities to prioritize saving lives, relocate people in danger zones immediately, and prepare for worst-case scenarios. He stressed the need for round-the-clock search and rescue, proper resettlement, and fast delivery of aid and personnel. In neighboring Tianjin, over 5,600 people were also evacuated, and tourist areas remain shut. Meanwhile, dams in Heiha River Basin have started discharging flood water to manage rising water levels. And with Typhoon Komei forecast to make landfall in eastern China on Wednesday, officials are bracing for even more extreme weather. This is Andrea Santos, your citizen correspondent for God and my beloved country, the Philippines.
As Australia gears up to co-host the 2026 UN Climate Summit, the UN is calling on the country to take stronger climate action, pushing for tougher emission targets and a quicker shift to clean energy. More details from Justin Nazario.
The United Nations is urging Australia to raise its climate ambitions, calling for a stronger 2035 emissions target and a faster shift to clean energy. Speaking at the Renewable Energy Forum in Sydney, UN Climate Chief Simon Stale warned that Australia's continued approval of fossil fuel projects, including a gas plant extension set to run until 2070, puts its climate credibility at risk. This comes even as Australia pushes to co-host the 2026 UN COP31 Climate Summit alongside Pacific nations. Despite the pledge to reduce carbon emissions, the country remains one of the world's top per capita polluters, largely due to its reliance on coal for electricity. Independent projection shows that Australia is unlikely to meet its 2030 goal of 82% renewable energy generation, citing policy setbacks, slow grid development, and lack of investment. The UN says Australia's upcoming 2035 emissions target, due in September, will be a key indicator of the country's long-term climate strategy. Failure to act could undermine regional stability, especially in climate-vulnerable Pacific and Southeast Asian nations. This is Justin Nazario, your citizen correspondent for God and my beloved country, the Philippines.
A political analyst warns that the Marcos Jr. administration's promise to crack down on corruption in flood control projects must be more than just lip service, urging government to mesh its stronger words with firm action and real accountability. MJ Mondihar reports.
Political analyst Professor Froilan Calilong emphasized that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s strong statements against alleged irregularities in flood control projects should not be reduced to mere optics. He asserted that these pronouncements must be followed by concrete action and thorough implementation. In an interview, Calilong noted that while the president delivered a compelling speech, the real measure of its success lies in whether accountability will be pursued against those involved in corruption.
Ganda rin naman na yung panghuli niya, okay, na siyang parang naging highlight ng kanyang talumpati was about the flood control, no, the projects that never materialized and became a reason for many corrupt and graft practices, particularly because we invested billions and even I think trillion of money para dito sa mga flood control programs ito na mukhang nadiskarila.
He further stated that if the president's goal is to hold officials involved in the anomaly accountable, then it is a positive step. However, what remains to be seen, he says, is whether the administration has the capacity and political will to carry it through.
Ang stance ng Pangulo rito, I think it's more of gusto niyang panagutin itong mga government officials na dawit o sangkot dito, which I think is good, no? Pero of course, ang titingnan natin dito is kaya ba tong itawid, no? Kaya ba tong gabayan ng sapat na aksyon at implementasyon?
President Marcos announced in his SONA that he has ordered the Department of Public Works and Highways to submit a list of all flood control projects that were started or completed in the past 3 years. This list will be reviewed by the Regional Project Monitoring Committee and may be made public to allow citizens to take part in any investigation.
Huwag na po tayong magkunwari. Alam naman ng buong madla na nagkakaraket sa mga proyekto, mga kickback, mga initiative, errata, SOP, for the boys. Kaya sa mga nakikipagsabwatan upang kunin ang pondo ng bayan at nakawin ang kinabukasan ng ating mga mamamayan, Mahiya naman kayo sa inyong kapwa Pilipino. Mahiya naman kayo sa mga kabahayan nating naanod o nalubog sa mga pagbaha.
The president vowed that these projects will be subjected to an audit and that by next month, those found liable in the investigation could face legal action.
At the same time, there will be an audit and performance review regarding these projects to check, to make sure, and to know how your money was spent.
For Ganwable of Philippines, I'm Jim Ondihab, SMNI News.
Up next, the U.S. accepts a luxury jet from Qatar as President Trump's next Air Force One, but critics warn it could violate the Constitution. Legal battles, billion-dollar questions, and a plane fit for a palace. And President Marcos Jr.'s tough talk on corruption gets slammed as weak and empty by an economist, while a former senator blessed the U.S. tariff cut as a joke. More news when Newsline World returns.
Kung akong tatanungin, kahit saang aspeto, gusto ko garantisado. Metikuloso akong tao, kaya gusto ko lahat maayos at sigurado. Lahat quality, yung hindi ako makukompromiso, pero sulit ang presyo. Ganyan ang clean fuel, kaya dito, panatag ang loob ko.
Magandang umaga po, sir. Utang po.
Utang. Kung gusto mo ng dekalidad na gasolina pero sulit ang halaga, mag-clean fuel ka.
Let us discover the power of prayer. 30 minutes of kneeling down and praying to God all alone in your room or when nobody is there will make miracles in your life. It will help strengthen your spirit and your mind, and the Father will give you the comfort that you have been seeking for that nobody can give.
In 2005, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy founded the Sunshine Philippines movement. A mission rooted in love for nature and nation. It began as an environmental and humanitarian initiative to reforest Mount Apo. Once barren,
now a thriving and beautiful place. Through his initiative, thousands of trees have been planted across the Philippines, bringing life and hope to communities. His advocacy, One Tree, One Nation, is also a movement that calls for unity in preserving the environment. Because every tree planted is a step towards unity, healing, and a greater future. Join One Tree, One Nation.
Back in the news, a $400 million luxury jet from Qatar is set to become President Donald Trump's new Air Force One, following a controversial U.S. government decision to accept the aircraft as a gift, sparking legal challenges, constitutional concerns, and questions over transparency and costs. Carlo de la Peña has more on this story.
The United States government has formally accepted the unconditional donation of a luxury jumbo jet from the government of Qatar intended for the president's use. In a memorandum of agreement signed by U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Qatari officials on July 7th this year, the plane is stated to be a bona fide gift made in good faith and in the spirit of cooperation. It is not tied to any official action or decision, past, present, or future. It also states that the Defense Department will handle the plane's operation and maintenance. The $400 million Qatari Boeing 747 will become U.S. President Donald Trump's new Air Force One, replacing the current 40-year-old presidential plane. Renovations to the plane will be made, making it almost like a flying palace due to its lavish interior. It is unclear as to how much the Trump administration will be spending to ensure the plane meets the requirements to carry a president. However, experts say it could cost $1 billion or more. Some lawmakers say it is in violation of the U.S. Constitution, which prohibits U.S. officials from accepting gifts from foreign heads of state. The U.S. Justice Department is now the subject of a federal lawsuit for withholding a legal memo from Attorney General Pam Bondi, which declared that accepting the aircraft is legally permissible. According to the complainant, the Freedom of the Press Foundation requested the memo in mid-May through the Freedom of Information Act. But the Justice Department responded that it would remain sealed until January 25, 2027. The White House has said that when Trump leaves office, the plane will be transferred to his presidential library. For God's my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
President Marcos Jr.'s fourth State of the Nation address aimed to highlight key national issues, but it was his pointed remarks on corruption that sparked fierce reactions, with critics calling out the speech for lacking teeth and real solutions. This report from Sheena Torno.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s fourth State of the Nation address, or SONA, on Monday centered on flood control projects, power and water supply, agriculture, and other national issues. But what stood out in his SONA was his job at officials allegedly making money off government projects.
Kaya sa mga nakikipagsabwatan upang kunin ang pondo ng bayan at nakawin ang kinabukasan ng ating mga mamamayan, mahiya naman kayo sa inyong kapwa Pilipino.
That line from the president didn't sit well with others. Economist and businessman Wilson Lee Flores didn't hold back his disappointment.
Okay naman sinabi niya na sobra na ang corruption. Pero sinabi lang niya sa mga politiko, harap ng politiko, sabi niya mahiya kayo. Walang hiya naman karamihan ng politiko natin, hindi marunong mahiya sila. So dapat, hindi niya sabihin dapat na mahiya kayo. Dapat sinabi niya, lagot kayo. hahabulin ko kayo, ikukulong ko kayo, kukunin ko yung mga nakaw mong pera. Dapat yun ang sinabi niya. Natawa lang siguro yung mga politiko, nag-standing ovation pa, nagbigay pa ng palakpak. Hindi uubra yun kasi mga politiko natin walang hiya, makapalang mukha, hindi sila nahihiya, wala silang takot.
He also said that Sona lacked substance and failed to address major issues that would boost the country's economy. There was also no clear plan to lower the cost of goods that continued to burden Filipinos.
Number one concern ko, ekonomiya. Kung hindi maganda ekonomiya, kahit anong palamuti, kahit anong talumpati, kahit anong gawin niya, baliwala lahat.
Meanwhile, former Senator Nikki Cosseteng slammed the president for what she called shallow achievements. She said Marcos Jr. failed to explain why the United States of America only reduced its tariff from 20% to 19% on Philippine export products. Coinciding with Monday's SONA, the European Union announced that it was only imposed a 15% tariff by US President Donald Trump on their products.
Ginawang 19, may utang na loob ka pa. Huwag nyo namang yung Pilipino, hindi naman kami Ito ay mahirap sikmurain, mahirap lununin na tayo may utang na loob sa nagbigay sa atin ng 1% discount sa tariff. At huwag nyo kaming bubulahin, sasabihin ninyo na in the future, meron tayong mapapala, yung ating national security. Ang national security po natin ngayon threatened by what? Hunger, disease. Hunger and disease, unemployment, yung healthcare na yan, edukasyon, yan po ang threat sa ating national security. Hindi galing sa labas at hindi galing sa iniimbento ng mga nagbebenta sa atin ng mga sandatang lakas.
According to Cosseteng, the Philippines is placing too much value in its relationship with the United States to the point that products coming from the US are practically tax-free. The former senator also questioned the benefits of hosting Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA sites in the country, especially in light of recent calamities.
Uy, magbayad kayo ng renta sa EDCA. Mga sites ninyo dito. Kasi lupa natin yan. Meron ba kayong binabayaran ng rent? Meron ba kayong, meron bang mapapala tayo? Nakita nyo na nga, hindi nga lumulusong sa baha. Wala naman tayong nakitang mga puti na kasamang tumutulong, di ba?
If Cosseteng were to grade Marcos Jr. 3 years in office, she would give him a score of 2 out of 10. As for businessman Wilson Lee Flores,
5.5 or 6. Malapit na magpasang-awa.
For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
Nearly 80 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs seized in the past 3 years. In his fourth State of the Nation address, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said the crackdown is working, but warns the fight is far from over. More of this news from Paul Montibon.
According to the president, the biggest seizure was just last month, where authorities confiscated over 10 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs in a significant part of Luzon.
Sa mga isinagawang pagsakote sa mga bodega at laboratorio at takang pagpasok, halos 83 bilyong pisong halaga ng droga ang nakumpiska na. Kamakailan lamang, may mga malalaking kargamento na nagkakahalaga ng bilyon-bilyon na nasabat natin sa Zambales, sa Pangasinan, sa Cagayan, Tondo, Muntinlupa, Ilocos Sur, Ilocos Norte, Cebu, Batangas, Rizal at Cavite. Noong isang buwan, personal kong sinaksihan ang pagsira ng halos 1.5 tonelada ng shabu at iba't ibang klase pa ng illegal na droga.
Marcos emphasized that their efforts to combat illegal drugs will be further intensified with the cooperation of key government agencies and public in reporting suspicious activities in their communities. He noted that many government officials, including law enforcers, are involved in the illegal drug trade.
Sa lahat ng mga operasyon na ito, mahigit 153,000 ang naaresto. Mahigit 9,000 at 600 sa kanila ay high-value target. Ang pinakamasaklap, mahigit 677 sa kanila ay kawani ng pamahalaan. Mahigit 100 ay halal na opisyal. Mahigit 50 ay pulis.
The president highlighted the government's achievements in combating crime, particularly addressing the problem of illegal drugs.
Sa 3 taon lamang, halos mapantayan na ang kabuuang huli nung nakaraang administrasyon. Sa kabila ng mga ito, tila nagbabalikan daw ang mga pusher. Kaya patuloy ang ating mga operasyon laban sa mga drug dealer, sila man ay big time o small time.
But for some, like Adele, the current administration must show more urgency in addressing the drug problem, citing the previous administration's strong approach.
Dapat yan ay asikasuhin niya para na sa ganon, ang kriminalidad dito sa ating bansa ay maging tulad ng dati na takutan ng bawat Pilipino, bawat tao. Para sa akin, mas maganda pa yung noon kaysa sa ngayon. Kasi nung noon, takot ang tao na gumawa ng kriminalidad. Kasi kumbaga takot sila sa magaganap sa kanila.
Despite the challenges, President Marcos Jr. thanked government officials for their continued efforts in maintaining peace and order in the country, particularly in addressing issues related to peace and order and illegal drugs. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montibon, SMNI News.
Senate President Francis Escudero dismissed the 150 billion peso budget insertion allegations as a politically driven demolition job, denying any wrongdoing and calling the claims baseless, malicious, and part of a broader campaign to discredit his leadership. Troy Gomez has more on this report.
Senate President Francis Chis Escudero strongly denied accusations linking him to the alleged 150 billion peso budget insertions in the 2025 national budget, insisting that these were part of a targeted demolition job aimed at undermining his leadership in the Senate. In a press conference on Tuesday, Escudero described the reports as malicious and baseless.
Sino bang nagsabi niyan? That is a mere insinuation. Again, bahagi ng ika nga PR job, PR campaign. So, hindi automatic yon. At wag mong isipin o sabihin na automatic din yun. Dahil hindi ganun yun.
He noted that the total proposed amendments to the 2025 budget amounted to around 600 billion pesos, including changes from the DBM and cabinet members.
So, kung totoo man yung sinasabi nila na 150 billion ang binago ng Senado, nasaan yung 500 billion yung pagbabagong yun? Saan ang galing? At bakit nila pinagtutuunan ng pansin yung mas maliit, hindi yung mas malaki?
He emphasized that he was being singled out in the reports, along with Senator Joel Villanueva, who he said was unfairly dragged into the issue. Escudero also revealed that he had already received warnings about a demolition job targeting him prior to the Senate presidency election. He added that in his nearly 3 decades in public service, this was the first time he had been accused of something of this scale.
Sa tingin ko, hindi pwedeng pulaan yung pagiging maingat ng Senado. Hindi marapat at hindi makatarungan para sa akin. At bahagi lamang ika nga ng politika at pamumulitika ang mga akusasyong binabato ngayon.
Reporting for Newsline World, Troy Gomez, SMNI News.
Amid scrutiny over public spending, the DBM is urging Congress to uphold the integrity of the 2026 budget and warning that major changes could derail key government priorities. Creseline Cataro has more on this report.
The Department of Budget and Management is calling on the public, especially the youth, to take an active role in the 2026 national budget deliberations. This is part of the agency's continuing efforts to promote transparency in the use of public funds. Speaking at a post-State of the Nation Address or SONA forum in San Juan City, Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman said the government wants citizens to understand how the national budget is crafted and to follow it all the way to approval. She reaffirmed that the DBM supports calls to open bicameral deliberations to the public to ensure transparency at every stage.
Gusto po sana natin makibahagi ang ating mga kababayan, lalo na po ang ating mga kabataan, para malaman po nila kung paano ang paggawa ng budget at saka kung paano po ito matatapos. Sinimulan natin nang ito ay bukas sa tao, hanggang sa matapos po ito po ay bukas sa tao.
The DBM chief also announced that a copy of the 2026 National Expenditure Program, referred to as the President's Budget, will be published on the DBM's official website as soon as it is submitted to the Congress.
Sa ngayon po, iniimprenta na po ang ating budget. In 2 weeks, ibibigay na po natin ito sa House of Representatives at saka sa Senado.
Following this, a series of consultations and hearings in both chambers of Congress are expected, with the DBM expressing its readiness to listen to the concerns of the public. Meanwhile, the DBM warned that significant changes to the proposed 2026 National Expenditure Program or NEP could delay the implementation of government programs and projects. Pangandaman stated that any deviation from the carefully crafted NEP could affect the execution of key government services.
So, kung yan po mababago at hindi po magiging katulad nung ginawa po ng ating mga kabinete, unang-una po babagal ang pag-i-implement ng mga proyekto. Kasi hindi po kami ready dyan Ang napag-usapan po namin sa loob ng 6 na buwan, yun po yung alam namin kung paano implement at saka paano isakatuparan.
That's why she urged lawmakers to stick closely to the NEP and follow President Marcos Jr.'s directive to avoid major changes. President Marcos Jr. earlier declared in his SONA that he would not sign any general appropriations bill that deviates from the NEP or fails to align with the government's national development plans.
Therefore, for the 2026 national budget, I will return any proposed general appropriations bill that is not fully aligned with the national expenditure program. And further, I am willing to do this even if we end up with a reenacted budget.
During the previous deliberations for the 2025 national budget, the DBM submitted a proposed NEP based on the administration's core priorities, including food security, digitalization, climate resiliency, and human development. However, in the course of congressional discussions, major changes such as fund realignments and insertions were made to the NEP. These adjustments later led to delays in fund releases and the implementation of some government programs and projects. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this is Creseling Catarong, SMNI News.
Clashes at the Thai-Cambodian border may have paused, but the tension hasn't. Just hours after a ceasefire took effect, Thailand is accusing Cambodia of violating the truce, reigniting fears of renewed conflict in the disputed border zone. Verhil Parba reports.
After 5 days of clashes along the Thai-Cambodian border, a ceasefire took effect at midnight local time on July 28, following peace talks mediated by Malaysia. However, just hours later, Thailand claimed that Cambodia had violated agreement. The fighting, which began on July 24th near the contested Prasat Thamuen Tom Temple along Thailand's Surens province and Cambodia's other Manchai province, has left at least 35 people dead and thousands displaced. The Thai government also issued a formal protest to the ASEAN Secretary General, China, and the United States. Despite the ceasefire, Thailand claims violations persist and vows to protect its sovereignty. As of now, the Cambodian government has not issued a public response. The ceasefire was made possible through talks led by Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet and Thailand's acting Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim shared the news during a press conference in Putrajaya. The agreement was co-organized by the United States with participation from Chinese and American ambassadors. The conflict stems from the long-standing disputes along the 817-kilometer Thai-Cambodian border, particularly over ancient Hindu temples such as Thamuen Tom and Priya Vihira. This is Verhil Parba, your citizen correspondent for God and my beloved country, the Philippines.
Tensions between the United States and Iran are once again on the rise. President Donald Trump threatens new airstrikes if Tehran resumes uranium enrichment, while Iran pushes back against renewed pressure from European powers. Prince Tripoli for the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a fresh threat to Iran, warning that its nuclear facilities could be bombed again if uranium enrichment resumes. Trump's warning follows last month's joint U.S.-Israeli airstrikes targeting Iran's 3 key nuclear sites. The strikes reportedly caused major damage and left dozens dead, including nuclear scientists and military personnel. Trump said the U.S. had already wiped out Iran's nuclear capabilities and warned that if Tehran attempted to restart them, it would be wiped out faster than you can wave your finger at it. Iran insists its program is peaceful. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says enrichment is a national right, rejecting claims of weapons development or hostile intentions toward Israel or the U.S. The strikes have drawn global condemnation. The United Nations warned of serious regional fallout, while Russia denounced the attacks as unprovoked aggression and called for diplomatic solutions. Tensions continue to escalate while Tehran vowing not to back down. Iran also says European nations have no authority to reimpose United Nations sanctions. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismaili Beghei declared Monday that France, Germany, and the UK, known as the E3, cannot activate the so-called snapback mechanism under UN Resolution 2231. He accused the E3 of trying to misuse the resolution to pressure Iran over its nuclear program, warning that any such move will face a strong response from Tehran. Beghei reiterated that Iran remains committed to its right under the Non-Proliferation Treaty and has no current plans to reopen talks with the U.S. and confirmed that Iran will continue uranium enrichment and is preparing for a visit from the International Atomic Energy Agency in the coming weeks. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Prince Tripoli, your citizen and correspondent, SMNA News.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to deepen. Nearly 60,000 Palestinians are now dead. That's the staggering death toll as Israel's bombardment of Gaza enters its 10th month. According to Gaza's health authorities, at least more than 59,000 people have been killed and 145,000 others injured, and the number keeps rising by the hour. But it's not only the bombs killing civilians. Hunger is now claiming lives. 14 more Palestinians, including several children, have died from famine and malnutrition caused by Israel's ongoing blockade of the Strip. That brings the number of starvation-related deaths to 147, 88 of the children since the war began. More than 40,000 infants under 1 year old in Gaza are at risk of what they call a slow death because baby formula has not been allowed. Concern continues to grow over the fate of 9 Filipino seafarers abroad, the MV Eternity Sea, after the Department of Migrant Workers confirmed that they remain in the custody of Houthi rebels. This is in connection with the attack on the vessel while it was passing through the Red Sea earlier this July. This report from Carla Abeliana.
The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, has confirmed that the 9 Filipino seafarers who were earlier reported missing after the MV Eternity Sea was attacked in the Red Sea remain in the hands of the Houthi rebels. According to Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak, the information was verified after the rebels released a video showing the faces of the detained crew. Among them were the 9 missing Filipinos from the said vessel. Kakdak clarified that based on the video footage, the hostages appear to be in good condition, although authorities still have no information on their exact whereabouts.
And with 21 seafarers, we still have a balance of 9. And today, we confirm, in coordination with our DFA, that the 9 are in the hands of the Houthi forces.
It can be recalled that 21 Filipino crew members aboard the Greek-managed bulk carrier MV Eternity Sea were attacked by Houthi rebels on the 7th and 8th of July while transiting the Red Sea. The DMW also assured the public that the ship's captain will still be held accountable if confirmed to be Filipino, due to the violation of a standing policy that prohibits Filipino seafarers from sailing through high-risk areas such as the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
Yes, in the period of 1 year, yes, meron tayong nakalap na mga reports in terms of bago sila dumaan at again, they provide the necessary risk assessments. And again, accordingly, there have been some cases na nag-refuse yung mga tripulante. And incidentally, yung refusal of a seafarer to sail carries with it the required payment of 2 months' salary and free repatriation.
For God in my beloved Philippines, Carla Abellana, SMNI News.
Chris Paul is back with the Clippers. The 40-year-old signs a 1-year deal for a possible final NBA run, aiming to help LA chase its first title. More news after the break.
Sa kabila ng mga mas modernong kaalaman at teknolohiya, nananatiling matindi ang banta ng HIV sa Pilipinas. Pero gaano nga ba kalala ang sitwasyon? Ang HIV o Human Immunodeficiency Virus ay isang sakit na sumisira sa immune system ng katawan. Ngunit tandaan, hindi ito nakukuha sa simpleng pakikisalamuha. Hindi mo agad mararamdaman, pero unti-unti nitong pinapahina ang katawan. At kapag hindi naagapan, humahantong ito sa AIDS, ang huling yugto na impeksyon, kung saan halos wala ng panlaban ng katawan laban sa sakit. Patuloy na dumadami ang kaso ng sakit na ito sa Pilipinas. Isang nakababahalang pagtaas. Umabot na sa 500% ang itinaas ng HIV cases sa mga kabataang edad 15 hanggang 25. Ayon mismo sa Department of Health, 56 na bagong kaso ang naitatala kada araw sa bansa mula Enero hanggang Marso 2025. At ang pinakamatinding apektado, ang kalalakihan at kabataang Pilipino. Dahil dito, ang Pilipinas na ngayon ang may pinakamataas na bilang ng bagong kaso ng HIV sa buong Western Pacific region. Isang indikasyon ng lumulubahang sitwasyon. Kaya nananawagan ng Department of Health gawing opisyal at urgent ang laban sa HIV sa pamamagitan ng isang Public Health Emergency Declaration. Kalalakihan ng pangunahing apektado, 95% ng bagong kaso ay lalaki, mahigit 1/4 ay kabataang nasa edad 15 hanggang 24. Habang wala pang deklarasyon, patuloy ang DOH sa mga sumusunod na hakbang: HIV testing, libreng gamot, self-test kits, at pakikipagtulungan sa DepEd para sa edukasyon sa mga paaralan. Isinulong rin ng DOH ang online patient appointment system para sa HIV patients. Layunin nitong gawing mas madali at mas personal ang pag-access sa libreng gamutan at konsultasyon. Ayon sa schedule ng pasyente, ang HIV ay hindi tulad ng flu. Hindi ito basta naipapasa sa hangin. Ito ay naipapasa sa pamamagitan ng personal na desisyon. Kailangan din nating pagtuunan ng pansin ang ugali, disiplina, at personal na responsibilidad. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
Kung akong tatanungin, kahit saang aspeto, gusto ko garantisado. Metikuloso akong tao, kaya gusto ko lahat maayos at sigurado. Lahat quality, yung hindi ako makukompromiso pero sulit ang presyo. Ganyan ang clean fuel, kaya dito panatag ang loob ko.
Magandang umaga po, sir. Utang po.
Food Dang. Kung gusto mo ng dekalidad na gasolina pero sulit ang halaga, mag-Clean Fuel ka.
Don't look back at old conflicts that make you bitter. The sign of a great mind is you forget the grudges done against you. Forget the past and get on with profitable living. Time is running, and let us look at the present of what we can do and then hope God for the future of what God can do and the desires in our heart that God will be able to do for us.
Back in the news, South Africa is rolling out a massive $5.3 billion bailout to rescue its falling rail and port operator, aiming to fix a logistic crisis that's choking the economy. This report from Stella Maris.
The South African government has approved a massive 94.8 billion rand, that's about $5.3 billion in loan guarantees to help the state-owned logistics company recover over the next 5 years. The package includes 48.6 billion rand to settle maturing debts and 46.2 billion to shield the company from possible credit downgrades. This latest round of support follows a 51 billion rand guarantee issued earlier in May, underscoring the state's commitment to stabilize a logistics network critical to the national economy. Transnet has been plagued by equipment failures, vandalism, and management issues, causing rail freight volumes to drop from 226 million tons in 2017 to just 152 million last year. Businesses, including chrome exporters, have been forced to switch to road transport, driving up cost, congestion, and carbon emissions. The government is now partnering with international lenders like the World Bank, African Development Bank, and the BRICS New Development Bank to push through vital reforms. The $5.3 billion guarantee ranks among the largest government-backed interventions in recent years and is expected to play a key role in reviving South Africa's logistics backbone. This is Stella Maris, your citizen correspondent, reporting for God and my beloved Philippines.
Following a series of typhoons, search and diving operations have resumed in Taal Lake in search for the human remains of missing cockfighting enthusiasts in the Philippines. In a new development, Justice Secretary Boying Remulla revealed that a new witness is set to be presented soon. Someone who holds not only testimony but also key physical evidence. It can be recalled that a man known as alias Totoy, a whistleblower and one of the accused, previously came forward in connection with the case.
Meron kaming bagong testigo na lalabas. It bolsters the credibility of Totoy. Kasi may naging problema dati ang investigators to identify somebody. Yung somebody na ina-identify, ito yun. Hindi lang yun, tsaka hindi lang to testimonial evidence, may real evidence na involved dito. Meron dito totoong ebidensya na bukod sa kwento.
Widespread floods have disrupted classes nationwide, prompting the Department of Education to implement makeup sessions and push forward with a major reform plans to address the country's learning crisis. The agency, meanwhile, gave its assurance that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s education commitment will be delivered before his term ends. This report from Jason Rubrico.
Widespread class suspensions have been implemented across the country in recent days as heavy flooding triggered by tropical cyclones and the southwest monsoon disrupted daily routines. The disruptions have affected many students' learning progress, prompting the Department of Education to conduct makeup classes in order to mitigate the impact of learning loss.
Plano talaga natin mag-makeup classes dahil kung hindi natin gawin yan, masyadong malaki yung mawawala sa ating mga kabataan.
Education Secretary Sana Angara explains that the implementation of makeup classes will be left to the discretion of public schools with flexibility built into the schedule to accommodate both students and teachers.
Depende na yun sa mga schools kung kailan na pwedeng dagdag lang na oras sa weekdays, pwede rin gawing sa Sabado. Depende rin yan. Ititingnan din natin yung schedule ng mga teachers dahil gusto natin na nagpapahinga din yung ating mga teacher.
Meanwhile, DepEd officially launched the Quality Basic Education Development Plan aimed at continuing and deepening reforms in the Philippine education system. The agency admitted that the country's education sector is in crisis and expressed hope that the development plan would help address long-standing challenges.
90% ng mga bata natin hindi makapagbasa ng maayos at ganon din sa matematika. Medyo struggle po yung mga kabataan natin sa pag-resolve ng mga mathematical problems, no? So, yung ating crisis kailangan magsimula sa pag-resolve sa foundation.
The Quality Basic Education Development Plan focuses on three major strategies: decentralization, which empowers local school leaders, public-private partnership, and digitalization. Senator Win Gatchalian welcomed the initiative, saying it comes at a crucial time and will serve as a roadmap to implement gradual reforms in the education system. In support, he emphasized that education will be a top priority in the upcoming national budget.
Bibigyan ho namin ng prioridad ang edukasyon dito po sa darating na 2026 budget. Kaya magkikipagtulungan ho kami sa DepEd para gawing realidad yung mga pangarap at yung mga plano ng Department of Education sa pamamagitan po ng 2026 budget.
Nearly 1 trillion pesos has been allocated to DepEd in the proposed 2026 national budget, according to the Department of Budget and Management. Secretary Angara for his part expressed confidence that President Marcos Jr. will deliver on his promises to the education sector.
Bago bumaba po sa pwesto si Pangulong Bongbong, palagay ko totoo lahat ng sinabi niya sa kanyang SONA.
Among the key promises in President Marcos Jr.'s State of the Nation Address or SONA are the construction of 40,000 classrooms before the end of his term in partnership with the private sector and a firm resolve to eradicate the learning crisis in the country. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SM9 News.
For our showbiz update, Queen Bee makes history again. Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter tour just seized the title of highest grossing country tour ever, raking in a massive $400 million from 32 sold-out shows across the globe. Get ready for a fiery return to Pandora. Avatar, Fire and Ash is hitting up the big screen this December 2025 with explosive action, jaw-dropping visuals, and a darker emotional storyline. Here's Sigrid Castañeda for our showbiz news.
Beyoncé is rewriting the music rulebook as her Cowboy Carter tour shatters record to become the highest grossing country tour of all time, pulling in a jaw-dropping $400 million across 32 sold-out stadiums in North America, the UK, and Europe. From the first beat of Texas Hold'em to the soul-stirring 16 Courageous, Queen Bee took fans on a thrilling ride through her boldest era, yet fusing country roots with her signature powerhouse flair. Decked in show-stopping cowboy couture, Beyoncé wasn't just performing, she was making a statement. Her unapologetic take on country music earned standing ovations night after night and opened new doors for genre-bending artists everywhere. Critics, fans, and even longtime country listeners were giddy in their boots, and rightfully so. This wasn't just a concert, it was a cultural moment and Beyoncé moment. And with this milestone, the icon cements her crown once again, not only as a chart-topping hit maker, but as a fearless trailblazer who's not afraid to break molds and make music history. Get ready for a fiery return to Pandora. Avatar Fire and Ash is hitting up the big screen this December 2025 with explosive action, jaw-dropping visuals, and a darker, emotional storyline. Following The Way of Water's box office success, this third installment dives into volcanic lands and fresh conflicts, led by the fierce Ash people. Fan favorite Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver, and Kate Winslet are back, joined by newcomers Una Chaplin, David Thewlis, and Michelle Yeoh. The recently released trailer has already wowed audiences, showcasing explosive battle scenes, emotional character moments, and stunning visuals that push the boundaries of cinematic technology. With hype soaring, Fire and Ash is already shaping up to be one of the biggest blockbusters of the decade. This is Sigrid Castaneda, your citizen correspondent, bringing you the latest showbiz.
For our sports news, from fleeing war to striking gold, Ukrainian swimmer Vladislav Bukov has become a world champion, winning the men's 50-meter freestyle at the 2024 World Aquatics Championships in Doha. And NBA legend Chris Paul is officially back with the Los Angeles Clippers, signing a one-year, $3.6 million deal for what may be his final NBA season. Carlo De La Peña for our sports news.
From war zone to world champion, Ukrainian swimmer Vladislav Bukov has made waves on the global stage. After fleeing his hometown due to conflict, Bukov kept training despite the hardship. Now, his perseverance has paid off. At the 2024 World Aquatics Championship in Doha, he won gold in the men's 50-meter freestyle, bringing honor to Ukraine. His win is more than just a medal. It's a powerful symbol of resilience and hope for athletes affected by war. Big news in the NBA, Chris Paul is back with the Clippers. The 40-year-old point guard who led the team during the Lob City era from 2011 to 2017 returns to LA to join the star-studded lineup featuring Kawhi Leonard and Bradley Beal. Paul called it a non-brainer move since his family is still based on Los Angeles. He's expected to take a smaller role on the court as the Clippers chase their first championship. In a classic gesture, Bill gave up his jersey number to welcome CP3 back on the team. This is James and Pedro, bringing you the latest sports news.
And before we end, may be inspired with the words of the sun. Evil will not triumph over me, because the Almighty Father is with me. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I am Franco Baranda. Goodbye.